What's up, Diablo players? So there's going to be a big patch coming out for the brand new season, and I want to go ahead and go over these as a patch notes. Originally I was going to make these for every single class, however the patch notes are actually quite small for each class, but I wanted to go ahead and mention that no matter what class you're playing, the game is supposed to be a lot more difficult. Some of these may not be mentioned in these patch notes because this patch note that we're getting is from the update to the PTR, so the game will be much harder. You're going to do a lot less damage, you get a lot less loot in terms of your legendaries as you are progressing up into Tormented 4. But once you're there, the loot should be relatively the same and or even better because they had buffed and made a lot of bugs go away with specifically like the tributes not dropping, so you should overall get more loot, but the game will be harder, therefore it may be a little bit longer to get to that point in the game. So I just want to start off the video with mentioning some of that, but let's go ahead and get started now. There's kind of a lot here, but it's not as big as I originally thought, but let's go ahead and hop right into it. So we don't have to make a video for every single class because some of them, there's a lot of overlap here. But anyways, so now upgrading an affix to a greater affix can now also occur on non-ancestral items. So this is actually pretty cool. This does mean if you get like a really good set of items, you could still upgrade into a greater affix, which is something that is brand new. So just because it's not greater affix, does it mean that it's useless? Not necessarily as much, but it's still better to get, multiple greater affixes. The affixes on ancestral, unique, and mythic items can no longer be replaced. So this is specifically with the brand new Season 11 Sanctification here. And then also the indestructible affix got replaced by adding 5 to 25 quality rings, which is actually not bad. If you hit a 25 on, all of your stats, it's actually kind of a nice thing to hit. That could be extra ranks to core skills, which is additional power specifically for the Sorc. That's kind of nice. And then to sanctify an item, it only needs to have an item power of 750 or higher in tormented difficulties rather than it being ancestral. So this is a big adjustment. This is the new upgrade system in Season 11. This is basically the biggest source of power that you're going to get for damage. Now there is also power in survivability, but that is accessed through the brand new Season 11 like power screen. But this is a pretty big deal, so keep that in mind that you can still use those items. Then it says affix ranges have been adjusted across the board in general to make it so affix values have been increased and ranges have been narrowed, and some affixes now have a higher maximum. So this is actually going to be a newer addition that I didn't even know about until literally right now. So hopefully this will make it so our builds won't feel as weak, because if you guys didn't know, going into Season 11, every build's going to feel way weaker. On average, at least from PTR, 7 to 80 is kind of like the top tier of most builds. There are very few exceptions of certain builds that would be able to even hit a pit 100, even though I just did a pit 150 in the background from gameplay. Keep in mind some of these things are subject to change, and that rogue build has actually already been nerfed, which you'll see in the patch notes. But additional legendary powers have been added. I really wish they talked about exactly what are these numbers, because they're saying that we're going to get increased numbers. Well, how much are these increased numbers? Because you used to be able to get another like bonus sanctification instead of like 100 strength. Now, if they're going to go from 100 to 120, it's like, why even mention it, right? However, if they're going to go to like 1,000, this is something to get actually excited about, as there's certain things that may scale with your main character's stats. So this is an area where there could be some outliers with any build guides, including my own that I've shown you guys from Season 11. Some builds may heavily benefit off of these brand new legendary powers from the sanctifications. They did say specifically in their update that some of these brand new sanctification mods will be batshit crazy. That is word for word what they said. So I have high expectations, Blizzard, so hopefully we're going to get some sweet sanctification mods. So that's one of the biggest updates here that I want to go over. That's across all classes. I'm sorry that it's vague. They didn't specify what are these. I wish they just told us what are some of them to actually get an idea of how big are these powers. Because if you're just making it so the numbers are like 10% higher, it's like whatever, right? Anyways, next up, divine gifts. So Andariels reduced the item quality rewards in torment difficulties. The bonus experience from the maggots has been adjusted. So basically, this is a nerf to XP, by the way. It was kind of out of control. The maggots, and specifically doing the brand new Asmodan boss, they were so broken in the Season 11 PTR. So obviously, I didn't expect to go through. However, with glyph upgrades, there's going to be another glyph upgrades. Where you now get a scaling chance to get an extra upgrade based on the divine gift rank. So it says rank 1 gives you 25% chance up to 100% at rank 5. And then the putrid glyph now grants 2 levels instead of 1. I believe this is the new like power system. So the new power system, I won't go over it in this video because it could take like 20-30 minutes to explain. If you guys haven't seen it, check that out. Basically, you will make the game harder, but you get bonus rewards, and one of them is to level up glyphs. So that's going to be cool. This is just going to mean that we can level up our glyphs faster at the end of the day. That's all it means. Lesser Evil Invasion. So Andariel no longer regenerates health if you die. Andariel's phase transition is now much quicker. The size of Belial's eyeballs have been increased so you can see it. Belial's death now takes less time to finish. This is a buff for people that chain farm. You know, Mythics, they're part of the game, right? And then Shrines no longer disappear when fighting Asmodee. That's cool. Asmodee has been granted resilience to bring him more in line with the other world bosses. You can't one-shot him. Although, I take that as a challenge. Lesser events in the overworld now reward unique items from layer boss reward pools. Wow, that's actually pretty cool. So maybe you guys can get some extra items. And then there's a balance update. So the mythic items, they actually nerfed? What? No way. So the Spear of Lycander, which let's be real, nobody plays. The lucky hit resource got reduced from 66 to 22%. So why did they nerf this? I don't know. No one's going to play it. No one was playing it. I think it might give you some resistances, but like, let's be real. No one's playing something that's not giving you damage in Diablo. That's just the reality of what people like to play. For the most part, Melted Heart might be like one exception because it does kind of give you damage in another way, which now it's changing it. So primary resource generation got reduced to 50%. I think it's supposed to be increased by 50%, but the number was 100 and now it's reduced to 50%. So it's a nerf from the PTR, but it's a buff, I believe, to its base because the whole thing is getting reworked. Overall, it's much better. So in the PTR, it used to give you like this, but we don't need to read what it used to give you because we're only here for the new thing. So the new thing is damage dealt to your primary resource before life, and damage taken is drastically reduced. Your primary resource is doubled, but maximum life is reduced by 75. They said this is going to make you feel incredibly tanky now. However, there is one issue. If you play a build that spends your resource and you need it to actually do that, then it is going to be something where you might not be able to play. However, there are certain builds where you don't actually need your resource. Let's say, for example, like the Flurry one, where you can drain your HP. You could consider maybe trying out Melted Heart or Selig just for a lot of defensive stats that it's going to give you. Even though like your energy may drain, there are other ways to regenerate HP, like the I think it's Starfire or Starlight aspect, where it gives you resources based on HP recovery. So there's going to be some cool stuff with Melted Heart of Selig. So I know a lot of you guys probably threw this item away, but in the Season 11 brand new patch notes, in Season 11 PTR it got changed, and then it got reworked again. So it's getting updated again, which is crazy because it just got updated. But yeah, like I said, don't throw this item away. I know I always tell you guys, Melted Heart of Selig, the Spear, Shattered Valve, they're all garbage, throw them away. This time, guys, the rest of them, yeah, they're still pretty mid. And basically garbage. Melted Heart of Selig is good though in Season 11. Okay, so next up, we're into the class balance changes here. And like I said, I was going to make a video for every single class, but we don't need to. It's actually quite short here. So, Barbarian. So the damage per 10 points of strength got increased from 1% to 1.1. So this is actually a pretty big deal overall. That's like a 10% increase to your character's like main core stat. And this, just like Diablo 3, it does give you damage. And there could be other things that can scale with this, but for the most part, you're getting on average 10% more whatever you're putting into strength. So strength for Barbarian will be even better of a stat. And then we have Kick, the width of the hitbox. Power Kick, the reverted the Fury Cap from PTR. They adjusted the attack speed scaling the leap. So basically the leap, not necessarily like the leap Quake Barb being nerfed, but like they nerfed the speed on it. So originally Barb was going to be the best class in the game for speed farming because the Sorc is taking some massive nerfs, but we are kind of up in the air with the Oculus. There's another thing that's getting reworked, but it doesn't explain it, I believe, in here yet, because we're just going to have to wait and see, which is kind of cool. But if any of you guys were interested in the speed farming Barb build, forget about it. That leap thing is getting nerfed. However, it still could be pretty good, but it's not going to be like screen wide, you know, kind of leaps. And then they have Enhanced Hammer of the Ancients, which is actually getting a pretty good buff. It's giving you an additional 100 Fury, and I believe Melted Heart of Selig doubles your Fury, so this is going to be pretty good for the build. We'll have to wait and see, like, how consistent can you keep all the stacks up? I'm assuming that you can just keep it at 100, and the Fury generation per enemy hit is increased. I don't know what the duration is or whatever, but nonetheless, this is actually getting changed over here. So this should be overall a buff, but it's a massive nerf when you look at the grand scheme of things. But I'm pretty sure that the Hoda Barb will still probably be playable when you just stack a bunch of extra resources. Now, the aspect of anger management over here is just getting a flat damage increase, but you're also also draining 1 additional Fury. So instead of draining 2 Fury per second, it is now 3, but you get a nice little multiplier, so you don't lose it on anything. This is a pretty good thing that almost all Barbs play, so basically 30x damage for Barbs. And this, with Sanctification, could go even further. They said that they are buffing these numbers up. We don't know what the end result will be on the Sanctification, because usually those can go beyond the game's limit. And then we have Chain Scourge Mail, the shorter cooldown for the last brawling skill used before re-enabling. All of them now scales based on attack speed, so that should be a buff. And the Field of Crimson, this is for group play ZDPS, which says Blood Pool bonus no longer applies to the casting player. So there are some classes that will emerge. This is really only for the tower and or pit pushing, but basically the damage that you inflict or like the blood pools will apply to all players, so it's going to be a buff to that like item. But like I don't think anyone's going to play it outside of a group, so it doesn't really matter unless you're doing very, very high tier rank 1 content. Like these support builds, by the way, guys, that people are talking about, I'm going to be real with you guys, most people will never play. It's like for the 0.1% that wants to go ahead and, you know, measure their size via the leaderboards. And remember, guys, leaderboards don't even come out until January. Next up, though, the Paragon, the Hemorrhage. These are the legendary Barbarian nodes, by the way. So we get another 15x here, 15x here. Carnage getting another 15x. So and there's another 5x here. Flawless Technique getting another 10 or 15x here, another 15x, another 5x here. They're buffing a lot with Barbarian, and it's to compensate for their massive, like, I don't know, it's like 3,000% damage loss. If you guys want to know why, it's because with Melted Arsalig, you could start scaling crazy numbers, and it was uncapped before. So will this keep in line with what it was before? I don't think so. I think it's still going to be nerfed, but again, with Diablo, sometimes you just got to test things out. And so I'll up to you guys what's the best Barbarian build, but I would keep your eyes peeled for Hoda to be one of the stronger ones, because all of these are getting buffed, and you get another 100 Fury, right? And then Berserking Finesse over here, it says affixes remove damage while Warcry is active, so that no longer exists. Arsenal Finesse no longer exists. And then the Weapon Attunement, the resource generations all got removed. So unfortunately, no more resource generation. They kind of killed that off like last season too, with instead of percent, you get flat numbers, which were always worse. So there's a nerf overall for most of the percent things in Diablo 4 for like resource generation. And then Druid over here, so we have Stone Burst, the lucky hit chance got increased to 6. Woo, I think Grizzly Rage. So this thing is actually pretty interesting. So to kind of explain it, on the PTR, your cooldown would not start until it ended, which is bad, which is back in, I don't know, like the earlier seasons of the game. And then eventually you could get Infinite Grizzly Rage, and then they removed it, and then they brought it back. And now it looks like, guys, they are removing it again. But don't look at this as like, oh, cool, 15 seconds cooldown reduction. No, because it only starts when it ends. So it's actually going to be a nerf. Now, there is a buff over here, and there's also increased armor previously at rank 5, but now the cooldown gets reduced by another 10 seconds. So I guess if you look at it this way, it's cooldown, you're always going to get the rank 5. You're playing Grizzly Rage, right? So at this point, we have it at 25 seconds. You get 75% cooldown reduction and or other sources that can maybe help out, and you can keep it up most of the time. But I really feel like if people want to be this ultimate Grizzly Rage with all the bonuses, just let them do it, man. I think it's just like people liked it, and it, like the downtime in between certain things equals you get one-shotted and or you do 0 damage. It's kind of like when you don't overpower in certain builds, like the Grizzly Druid, you just don't do damage and you lose out on big multipliers. So overall, I see this as a nerf, even though it looks like a buff. Again, the reason why is because it doesn't start till it ends. So just keep that in mind. But you do get more damage reduction, but remember the game is getting harder anyway, so it is probably still going to be a little bit harder. With the passives, with Earth and Might over here, its damage against Immobilized got increased over here by 10x, and crit strike damage got increased by 5. And then aspect of the Rampaging Werebeast over here, it had to do with something with like where is it? Previously, the duration of Grizzly Rage would increase, and then your crit strikes would increase your crit strike damage, and it go up to 200x. Now it only goes up to 120, but now critical strikes increase your damage by 3x for 60 over here. So basically, the damage numbers go down a little bit here. And then also, they gotta change it up a bit again. So this one shouldn't really matter, but it's previously, you were able to spread rabies. I don't know why they did that, but it was like, okay, it can ramp up maybe some other damage sources, but for the most part, it probably doesn't matter too much. This is basically the same. The spreading rabies didn't matter. I tried, by the way, guys, running rabies as the main source of damage. It was such a failed build, I didn't even upload it. So this like doesn't matter unless you're doing like normal difficulty content. This was terrible anyways. So there is not really a nerf, even though yes, I get it. You don't spread rabies. It basically doesn't matter. Okay. Anyways, next up, these new boots over here. So the effect used to run through enemies, then it would like do damage to them, and then now if you damage basically up to 100 enemies with their nature magic skills, it grants you max movement speed and unhindered. Enemies you run through become immobilized, and then you also get extra ranks of endless tempest here. And then with the Paragon over here, the damage got changed. Instead of it saying your Earth skills deal increased crit strike damage, and it'd go, where is it? Up to 60x, you just deal 70x increased crit strike damage. So all the numbers, even though it looks like a buff, the game is getting much harder. So it is technically a buff to this because it's not just damage versus crowd control bonus over here. It's just your Earth skills deal 70x, which is kind of cool. And then with Constricting Tendrils, it's just now 40x increased poison damage versus 35x to certain enemies. And then it still has that chance to do that poison damage, but now it's at 200% increase, but most of the time this is like just doesn't matter for damage. This is actually an unfortunate nerf to the Druid. Digitate Gate was a really huge source of movement speed for the Druid, but that's nerfed. Alright, so next up, moving into the Necromancer. So Book of the Dead, we got increased attack speed on Iron Golem, and then we have the Bone Spirit, they reverted to the cap, meaning it doesn't have a cap anymore, but like the thing that made it good was because like, well, you could just get Meltadar, so like you have so much resources. Hellbent Commander removed the requirement. This is actually a pretty nice change over here. And then the timer for Overpower got reduced over here, so that's a buff. The aspect of Shielding Storm, this got nerfed. They're nerfing a lot of the survivability to make the game a lot harder in a lot of different areas, and this is just one of them. And then we have the Sanguinevore Blade of Zir. Is it going to be good? I don't think this thing came out dead on arrival, and I don't see this really changing. Hopefully I'm wrong on this, but yeah, I don't think a 5% increase to this like matters. Like taking the F tier skill and being like, all right, 5% damage on it, it's probably not going to matter. But it now contributes to 3 souls, up from 1. So maybe they've tested it out. I don't know. I want it to be good. I want me to be wrong with this, as well as shouts to the other Necro player, Macro Bio Boy, another Diablo partner. He was talking about how this item was just like super bad. I was also saying the same thing, and I'm like, maybe I messed up. I went ahead and checked him, and yeah. So this thing, it's just unfortunately. I would say it's probably we need like 300x damage. We just need some like big Diablo 3 numbers if they want it to be good. I just unfortunately, again, when you look at any two-handed weapons, it's just hard to make them good without crazy multipliers. Anyways, Curious Embrace, the damage got increased to up to what is it, another 40x of the weapons damage, and then Mutilated Plate, we got another 20x damage here. Ring of Mendel, getting a damage increase of weapon damage, and then Bone Golem's combos to swing twice counts as a single attack for Mendel rather than 2, so that's a buff and a nerf. Now, I'm not sure if Bone Golem was really used. I actually don't even remember running Ring of Mendel. I actually did drop a Golem build. If you guys didn't know, the next season we basically get like, it's either tall or short man's finger. Basically, you get all these mini Golems, and it's a really cool Necromancer build. It's actually one of the top 5 builds that I would recommend for people to play. It's one of the top tier Necromancer builds, as well as one of the best builds in the game, and it's fun, and it feels kind of new, because it's like a main Golem build, but you get like a little Golem army, and you can also run wolves in it now, especially since the minions apparently don't count towards the number over here with the Hellbent Commander. You don't need it anymore, which is cool because it's like it doesn't need the requirements anymore. So that's going to be a nice change over there as well. But again, I don't think you played Mendel anyways. With the Tempering, they removed the resource generation, so get wrecked on that one. With the Rogue, this is actually kind of a nice buff. So the per 10 points of dexterity, instead of being like 1.1%, it is now 1.25. So it's going to make the Rogue feel a lot better. Rogue was the worst class in Season 11's testing. There was 0, and I mean not one player. Well, technically I did a pit 150, but I was using some bug. But if we don't count that, there was 0 players that did anything legitimately over a pit like 90, I think it was 93 or 94. There was 0 rogue builds that could level up their glyphs. So will this help out? Sure. But is it going to be a class I would say lock in and play? Well, there's actually some kind of nice buffs here. So this is a nerf here. This over here is also a nerf. But they give us extra damage on Trick Shot. trust me, pen shot is really rough to actually use. All you use with pen shot is to proc other sources of damage. So I'd still say pen shot probably not going to be that great. However, Blade Dancer's Twisting Blades is getting another increase of 20%, but on a two-hander, right, you go from 20% and then that becomes doubled, so that's another like 40x damage, and 40x damage is like basically another aspect, so maybe you can try to consider running Twisting Blades as if you were a fan of that. That's going to be better, and then again, you get this buff over here as well. They remove the cap from Beastfall Boots, so that could be good for, let's say, the Death Trap build, and then also with Melted Heart Salig, but usually you'd want to run Banish Sword, so those compete for the slots. I actually think this is kind of a cool change with Wind Force. The chance to deal triple damage can roll to 100%. I'm interested in actually trying this out, as I've always been a fan of Wind Force. It was like the OG Diablo. It was in Diablo 1 and 2 and 3. In 3 it sucked, it was never really good, but in Diablo 4 maybe it's your chance. I mean, triple damage is pretty good. Now I'm wondering if the triple damage can proc on other abilities, let's say like on like the Azurath. I don't know if this is going to work, but we'll try it out and we'll see how it goes. The one downside with this is that if you're on a boss, the boss isn't considered knocked down until you pick up that stagger bar, therefore the build may be really bad unless it's knocked down, right? Then that kind of makes some sense. But if it's like a normal elite, if you knock them down so many times, they actually have like some sort of like stagger bar that requires you to build more threshold, so watch out for that if you do want to push with the build, but it's something that I have in the back of my mind to at least try. And then Scoundrel Kiss over here, the bonus damage is getting increased over here, and I believe that is the, I believe that's the rapid fire, right? And then the Death Mask is getting a nice little increase of 30x increased bonus damage. So that's with the Flurry build. So if you're a fan of that, again, you have the main stat bonus, you have Twisting Blades, you have Flurry, and I think that makes it a little bit more exciting to play Rogue if you're a Rogue fan. But as far as the Dance of Knives build goes, I'm gonna be real with you guys, that build sucked. It was good when I did a Pit 150 and it was bugged, but that has been nerfed. I would say maybe you can look to do Pit 80, but I think the better builds will probably be the Orphan Maker still, maybe Death Trap again. But hopefully they'll buff the Dance of Knives. I'm hoping they buff that again because it was pretty lackluster when you removed like the bug. And then we also have the Rogue motion over here, the ranks to Stutter Step, and no more persistence over here. So with the Sorceress over here, they adjusted the description to specify that it invokes teleport and doesn't cast it. They also made it so you gain 25 all res instead of dazing the enemies, so that's going to be kind of a nice thing to have. This is actually pretty big considering resistances now can go past, let's say, 75. You actually have like 5,000-ish towards the end game, and they may change these numbers, but like to get 25% additional, it's going to be actually pretty good. If you guys want the tankiest and easiest class to play in the next season, I probably am going to recommend everyone to play Sorc, even though I'm mainly like a rogue person. I'm going to say objectively the strongest class in terms of survivability is going to be the Sorc. A lot of classes, guys, I'm telling you, you're going to feel the nerfs with the survivability, and Sorc does not care. And the reason why Sorc does not care is you play teleport in almost every build. However, the other thing is that you can use teleport as like a dash so you don't have it equipped, and the new thing makes it so you can't equip teleport, but you can have the enchantment, and that should proc this, and if it does, then Sorc is going to become like the tankiest class. It's kind of weird that it's the tankiest class in the entire game, and the reason why is like every time you activate a skill with cooldown, you get 30% of your HP. That is something that's so hard to beat for any class, and that did not get nerfed, which, the fingers crossed, season of 12, they keep it that way. But anyways, Potent Warding over here. So you used to be able to get some extra resistances. Now it's 3% to all resistances, and then 5% to that skills element. This can actually be pretty good because it's a percent. Again, this is pretty big because you are getting a percent of what you already have, and since you scale into anyways, this is another reason why Sorc is going to be very, very tanky in general. The energy focus, the maximum barrier got reduced over here, and then the barrier per rank reduced from 10% to 5% on protection, and then with warmth, the healing got reduced over here, but again, barrier is like the only thing that really matters, and there's lots of different ways to grant yourself barrier. Mind's Awakening legendary aspect, the barrier got reduced over here. This is a really good thing to get for almost every build. I believe it's when you use a cold skill that it actually procs this, so if you want to play cold, which Frozen Orb is supposed to be the new thing, but I'm going to be real with you guys. You can also check out Makuna's channel on that. He did the testing with the Frozen Orb, and it was underwhelming, and they, as far as I'm aware of, are not buffing it. So, as of as far as right now, the brand new Crackling Energy, well, it's kind of an old build, but it got changed in Season 10. If you're looking to play a build, you're probably looking at that instead of playing Cold. But for whatever reason, if they decide to buff Frozen Orb, which I think they should, because hopefully we'll get feedback that Frozen Orb is not up to par, because it wasn't, that they'll actually buff that maybe in like the first few weeks, because they did buff like the Death Mask like, I don't know, 3 times at this point. So hopefully we can also see a buff with that. With the Serpentine aspect, they removed the mana cap, which is pretty good, but remember, you cannot get like 10,000 mana anymore. The aspect of the Bounding Conduit, the Teleport's cooldown reduction got changed from 4.5 to 4.5, but there's like some sort of internal cooldown on Teleport that's bad now. Basically, don't expect to be using like my build that I showed you guys how to infinitely teleport without Harlequin. That's not going to work anymore. I don't think anyone's going to be able to get it without Oculus. Now, they didn't really explain the thing fully, but we'll get into it in just a second here. Aspect of Biting Cold is getting a buff, so all that matters is Frost skills just deal more damage and have a chance to apply vulnerability. Before, it would have like a chance to apply or make the enemies vulnerable, but like you have vulnerable in another source usually, because Frozen Orb can also generate the vulnerability. I think they should have said if they're vulnerable, you get another like 50 or 80x damage to make Cold good again. Like Cold hasn't really been super hot in a while. It's been like, okay, Hydra for a couple seasons right now, and then now it's Lightning again with the Crackling Energy, but I think they could show a little bit more love, so hopefully that will get buffed too. Anyways, Oculus. So previously, casting Teleport grants a stack of Galvanization, which increases its damage. But now hitting an enemy with Teleport increases its damage and reduces the cooldown. So you have to hit enemies with the Teleport in order for it to be good. And then becoming injured will teleport you to a random location. There's probably also a different change of the ranks to the Oculus, but we'll have to wait and see kind of what it looks like, because this is all they show off. We'll try it out, but I just don't expect anyone to be able to infinitely teleport. Rima the Infinite actually got changed over here as well. So Teleport now pulls enemies closer to you and grants you damage reduction instead of making it so the close enemies are pulled and you have a chance to reset it. So this will be kind of cool until you get Shroud of False Death, but like, let's be honest, that's like the only thing that matters. And then with Affixes, the ranks to Elemental Attunement got replaced with Resistances, and ranks to Shocking Impact got replaced with 40% Teleport CDR, which you might be thinking, oh, well, you just max out your CDR real easy because 75 is the cap in Diablo. You don't even need Harlequin. Now, they are also giving us cooldown reduction in rings and gloves now, so maybe consider that, but I think that there's probably some internal cap that's still going to make it so you can't just do it. That's my guess, but we'll wait and see. I'm hoping I'm wrong, but nonetheless, they said they didn't want us to teleport. Everyone complained. They're like, oh, okay, well, we'll put some more back. So it's probably going to be worse than it was, but not as bad as BTR is probably my guess. Anyways, so they added Frost Finesse, they added Frost Critical Strike Trance, they added affixes to move the rings to Conduction over here. With Spiritborn, they reverted Vigor Cap from PTR and Poised Payback. Poised Rush Claw now reduces the time to recharge by 5 seconds. So I'm actually curious to see if this becomes like a viable build. If you guys didn't know, there is a thing where you can get where it's going to cast your core skills every set, like a distance that you travel, and that should count when you use your mobility skills. So there could be some cool, like, super fast build. I don't know. This is something I'm looking forward to. I like to theory craft, but keep that in the back of your mind if you guys are playing, that you can maybe run this as like your main, like, even though this doesn't do your main damage, it like activates, right, because you're moving fast. And then we have passes with Fueled over here, where it used to gain 5% of your HP. Now it's a flat number. Again, flat numbers are always worse than percent for the most part. And then with Potent over here, the Jaguar skills would give you Jaguar attack speed and cooldown. Now its Jaguar skills deal increased direct damage to up to 3 of the closest enemies near you. And then with the aspect of the Force Power, Barrier got reduced over here, so that's a nerf. Reverted Vigor Cap with Erotic Keeper AK. This is pretty big, honestly. This could be actually pretty awesome for a lot of different builds. And then Peacemonger Signet, the dodge chance got converted to Dex, and this is more damage, but you lose out in dodge. Alright, so this is across all the characters now. I think we're done with the class changes here, but now we're moving to the generic stuff. So the Masterworking. So I actually kind of talked about this, but I'm going to briefly touch upon it, because the whole point of this is that everything, the big massive patch notes all in one video. So Masterworking, the quality got changed from 25 and it used to be 20, so now it's going to be a little bit better. And so how it works, because this wasn't really shown off, so I thought it was 2%, because it showed, okay, to be fair, in their little demo, they showed it say 2%, so it's gotten changed 3 times now. So this time, now it's 1% for quality. So all of your stuff can get 25% quality. That's 100%. Then if you fully masterwork, it gives you 50% upgrade to a random affix, which can be a tempered affix. And then it'll change in color over here. Now, there is also an additional Sanctification that can go up by 25. So in theory, some of this stuff could go actually double the stats, because you have a 50% on your masterwork when you fully do it, and if you want to re-roll that part of it, you can do that, and it's actually much better than it used to be. You don't have to reset everything. At least on PTR, they didn't mention it here, but like you could just re-roll basically the last thing. So even if you don't get something, do not reset. You can just re-roll that final thing again and again, which will cost you the 100 other side, which actually is not even that bad at all. This is actually pretty generous. But at the same time, I just gotta let you guys know that obviously selecting something with the correct G that you want is good, but the crit on it doesn't matter as much because you don't have to reset and do everything from like starting from scratch. So this is good. But the one thing that you cannot change though is when you sanctify the item, that's the final thing. So if you want your thing to have 100% increased quality in terms of like the bonus on it, then you have to make sure that you crit it at the masterworking step. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. But then also tempering, you get to select whatever one that you want, and then some classes have certain things changed. So it looks like the movement speed got... Why did they nerf this by 1%? This doesn't even make sense. We got changed from 16 to 25 to 50. Why did you think that nerfing 1% was like that? We got to lock it in. We got to nerf it by 1%. Movement speed. This is something no one plays this anyways. People just care about this because town is where you spend a lot of time in Diablo, and you can't use your mobility things in town, and you can't kill an elite in town. So I have no idea why they buffed this, because I'll be real with you, no one's playing this. If this said when you kill an elite and it lasted for until you logged out, sure, but like people care about this more, and it got nerfed by 1%. That's so weird that they nerfed it. I'm reading this right. Yeah, 16? Yeah, 16 to 25, 15 to 20, nerfed by 1%. Worldly Endurance, maximum life got it increased over here on the tempering. So that's going to be a nice buff. But remember, the whole game is getting much harder. Natural Schemes over here. So Thorns. Ooh, okay. Now, I'm going to be curious. That's a pretty big buff for Thorns, to be honest. I don't know if this is going to make Thorns. Maybe it's finally time to lock in Thorns, guys. But Woodley Stability over here, Affix has got added. Casting Ultimates restores primary resource. That's actually pretty good. Some builds may want to consider that one for sure. But I'm also thinking about the Thorns here. This is a pretty big number. Like every single point of Thorns, I know it sounds like small, but like this is a very big jump out of everything. I might actually suggest a lot of you guys to maybe try in that Balazan Pants build again, which was already a good build, but now like we're getting these are like respectable numbers here in terms of a buff. But toughness over here, oh, this is just like saying that toughness, and they're removing attack power, which is great. And there's a bunch of probably like bugs, sort of like bug fixes. Yeah, these are just like the bug fixes. I'm not gonna go over these because I feel like they're kind of unnecessary, but if there's any important ones, let me know. It's usually just like if things weren't working properly, like heavenly sigils could fail to consume when you sanctify. I remember this glitch, but most of these just expect things to like work properly from the PTR. But if there's any other like important bugs, I'll update you guys on that. But nonetheless, some of the bugs though, you know, there could be like a legendary node that doesn't work anymore. Like that, those are a pretty big deal if they fix these. But just looking at a quick glance over here, it's not saying like, you know, fix an issue where some of the aspects weren't working. Sometimes that happens, and those are the things that I would want to go over. And if there is any, I'll let you guys know in like the pin or something. But I just feel like it's unnecessary to go, oh, there's actually a bunch of class specific ones. Okay, Bulwark was granting the incorrect amount of fortify. Okay, so like that could matter. Also, this wasn't in the patch notes, but this is weird because now we're going to like okay. Because I'm pretty sure this is pretty much it, and then it just goes into Vessel of Hatred. However, Fortify is getting changed, guys. So if you guys didn't remember, Fortify is that thing that goes above your HP. It used to give you 10% damage reduction, and anything that says while fortified you get special bonus, right? But now it's changed. Fortify is actually another layer of HP that fills up your regular HP, but doesn't take damage. It only refills. So it's actually getting a rework. So just as a heads up, I don't think it was mentioned here, but I know it was in the campfire chat, but everything else is just like the bug stuff. And we're already at like 30 minutes, so let's go ahead and wrap it up for the video. But let me know, guys, based on these patch notes, two different things. One, are you guys excited about Season 11? Because I'm going to be real with you guys, the expectations weren't really too high from PTR. But the one thing that I'm personally really excited about is when they said that keyword was batshit crazy on the new tempering system. I actually kind of like the idea that they said that they're, you know, these powers, they're not going to reveal all of them. I actually think that that's cool because I like discovering things. However, if they're just going to be like a numbers game of like 10-20% extra like damage, like of buffs, when they said specifically batshit crazy, I want to see crazy things. I want to see maybe I don't know. I gave him some suggestions, like as a Diablo partner. I was like, hey, can we maybe like equip like rings as amulets? Like, I want some crazy stuff. So if they took any of my like exact feedback, some of my feedback was like, I want to equip stuff from another class. I want to use skills from another class. If they're like, you know, hey, you could have the Necromancer core skill, then we're really cooking with a really exciting season. And the reason why I'm ending off the video with kind of a downer, to be honest, is because season 10 was probably my favorite season, and I'm super sad that they didn't say, hey guys, we heard you guys love Chaos Armors. We're just going to keep them in the game. That's what I wanted to hear. And without the Chaos Armors, I feel like the build diversity goes down. You're nerfing our loot in the earlier stages of the game. You're nerfing how hard the game is, as in, well, you're making the game harder for everyone. So in theory, you're getting a lot less loot. And another issue is the tower isn't being introduced at the start of it. So I wanted to kind of gauge and see how you guys, you know, my viewers are feeling about going into season 11. So a 0 meaning that you have 0 hype. So if you guys want to comment, because I genuinely am curious, is 0 to 10 as far as how hype you are for the season. And then also, I'm also curious to know what class do you guys plan to play in the new season 11, because that will help me know which class build guides to release first. I probably will play multiple classes like I normally do, but sometimes I like to see what everyone's playing, because I'll be real with you guys, if you guys are all like, we're not playing this class, and if you guys are like, oh, we're all playing the Sorc, then I'll make you guys that Sorc content first, because I think Sorc is going to be kind of the class that I would recommend for several reasons. One, it's the class that I would say is the easiest to survive the next season. Next season is actually quite hard for survivability. And then on top of that, you have a potential brand new teleport build that they were talking about that wasn't really shown off because the Oculus didn't fully get revealed, but it really comes down to the damage multipliers and how long that duration of the stacked teleport damage can actually last. If it has infinite stacks, then, yeah, it might be really OP to go to the training ground, slam a bunch of stuff, and then TP right back out if it holds the buffs, because they said we can teleport to the training grounds now, which I don't know if they disabled it for a reason, because before you go into town, certain things can like actually change in the stat sheet, and so you might be able to do some broken stuff that's probably going to introduce new bugs, and that's why they didn't let you teleport to there in the first place. However, if there's some crazy teleport stuff, I'll cover it. But the Crackling Energy allows you to stack core skills, which basically means you can build into the Crackling Energy build with a lot of different things, because you can just stack core skills on your gloves, and that way you can get more bang for your buck. You can basically run multiple builds by stacking core skills. So I think that Sorc offers a lot more survivability. So Sorc is going to be my like #1 recommendation. But number 2, I really like the Golem build. There's a Golem build. I've already dropped the gameplay, and heck, the build guide's already out for that one, and it's going to be maybe just a little bit stronger with the Mendel if you want to try it out with that. But because that got buffed. But that would probably be like my second recommendation. But I'm curious to know, what do you guys plan to play? Because right now for me, I'm going to start off with a Sorc, and then we'll see from there what's the new hot OP thing. Because that Thorns is looking pretty good. And again, that was a pretty big number change. And remember, you could basically get that number on Thorns to basically get 25% more guaranteed, then 50% more, so we're at 75. And then if you get lucky with the Sanctification to get an increased quality up to another 25%, we're doubling that. So again, and that's on every single piece of gear. Now, is it realistic to get the correct Sanctification on every single piece of gear? Probably not. You're really looking at 1 in a million, but I don't know, something to actually shoot for and scale. But anyways, this video is long enough. If you guys enjoyed it, drop a like. If you're new here, subscribe to the bell, and I'll see you gamers in the next video. Peace out.